Either 20 minutes. It's like probably
That's what I mean, like probably now.
Welcome to UCLA Extension Department of Business, Management, and Legal Programs video lecture series on entrepreneurship, new venture formation, and strategic business plan development. The video you're about to watch gives instructions on how to identify and document your competitive resources. Basically, it's a statement of your qualifications to execute your mission statement to achieve your business, your vision of success statement. I'm Harry Redinger, your instructor. There is a total of over 40 videos in this lecture series that integrates with our UCLA Extension online course management program, Canvas. Each video strives to be brief, but there will be overlap between the videos that tie our curriculum together. Okay, let's get started. Okay, the first thing that, before we get into the subject matter of identifying our competitive resources, I want to talk just a little bit about something I've been involved with over the years, and that is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is really a fancy way of saying our behavior. Per our video on the Myers-Briggs type indicator and the strong inventory, these are aspects of our personality that are innate. We can't change them. They're like our fingerprint. But our behavior we can change. Our behavior we can break down into 5 categories: how we perceive ourselves, how we project ourselves, how we interact with other people, how we make decisions that deal with the emotions of ourselves and the emotions of others, how we solve problems, and finally, how we manage stress. We call those the 5 realms of emotional intelligence. They're all connected. They all start with your self-perception, how you perceive yourself. And as we go into the subject matter of how to identify our competitive resources, our number one most valuable and competitive resource is ourself, needless to say. Now, we're going to talk about identifying financial reserves and social networks and licenses and certifications and academic degrees and things of that sort. But most importantly, it's our innate abilities in a conjunction with our ability to work with people. 20% of success is how smart we are, how fast we can read, write, and do math and interpret complex situations. 80% of success is based on our emotional intelligence, or what we refer to as EQ. How smart we are, IQ, how well we do emotional intelligence, EQ. And so a strong or high level of emotional intelligence is absolutely a competitive resource. So as we get into this curriculum, I want to plant the seed with all of you to learn about emotional intelligence, because we can't change our psychological type, but we can increase our level of emotional intelligence. Okie dokie. So our first slide up here is 2 guys arm wrestling strength, and it simply states your most competitive resources are the things you enjoy doing most, things you just it's a hobby, it's fun. And as we've talked about throughout many of our videos and lectures so far, is life's all about alignment, aligning our most competitive resources, aligning our innate personality, aligning our accomplishments, our knowledge, our skills, our achievements with our vision of success, with our mission statement, and its connection to our vision of success. So the process of starting to identify our competitive resources starts by looking at our life story, our biography. In the business plan development process, and as we've mentioned earlier, not all of you who are watching this video right now are in a class to learn how to write a business plan, but you are here to learn about entrepreneurship and new venture formation. And the subject matters that we teach to teach entrepreneurship as well as new venture formation are absolutely the same subject matters we go over and in the same sequence to develop a business plan. So it makes for a good curriculum to follow as we talk about things like identifying our competitive resources. So here, in terms of the steps we go through to develop the sections of business plan, our competitive resources and market opportunity sections are the last two sections we develop before we go into our competitive strategy section. Both the competitive resources section and the market opportunity sections of a business plan merely enumerate our competitive resources and market opportunities. They are a summary of the company history, the industry analysis, and market analysis before we jump into developing our strategy sections. So let's define what our competitive resources are. What are competitive resources? Our competitive resources are the traits, accomplishments, and market connections that support the company's ability to execute the mission statement to achieve the vision of success statement. In essence, they validate you, the entrepreneur, you, the company, to execute the mission statement to achieve the vision of success statement. So, and as we get into the details of how to identify specific competitive resources to support the business plan, the whole objective here is to make bullet lists, just, it's a one-page section of our achievements, our skills, our abilities, our talents to go forward with this business plan. And dumb logic, everything listed there should align with the objectives of the business, the mission statement, the vision of success statement, etc. And as you're soon going to find out, the requirements that are discovered and outlined in the industry analysis and the market analysis. So I put this slide in here called accountability. For each competitive resource that you list, there must be a connection point within the company history as to how and where the competitive resource was acquired. So we often talk about, people buy you first and what you're selling second. People want to know your story, how you acquired the talents you have to do what you do. And this is why when we develop a business plan, we often have to go through it 3 times, because the first clip, we're just getting everything out. But then we start to realize we outline certain objectives, certain opportunities, certain maybe perhaps technical aspects of the business that it's essential that we have knowledge of that. So then therefore we have to come back and add to our company history someplace where we acquired the knowledge to be competent in executing a particular phase of the business plan. And here's where we might need to indicate something that we would basically call a competitive resource. How we gain the knowledge to do Photoshop or web design or something of that sort. We want to just touch on the Myers-Briggs and Strong's inventory. We did an entire video on this. I think it was almost an hour video. It's very detailed. But the results of the Myers-Briggs type indicator, your innate psychological type, as well as the Strong's inventory, which is basically a career skills assessment instrument. Anything that if you do take these instruments, any aspect, any information that you resonate with, you can identify with, that's me, absolutely, that's me. We want to encourage you to highlight that and weave that information into the company history someplace, as well as, if applicable, to identify these points of psychological type, as well as work-related skill sets as a competitive resource. Gosh, I love this diagram. It shows up in just about every video. But, in the strategic planning process, we talk much about, everything's about alignment. And also, the phase of competitive development and the exponential growth curve is key there. And so one of the competitive resources and talents is that we want to talk about is you being aware of all that goes on in the execution of the mission statement, to know when to let go and when to start working on the business, that you're competent to start leading people, delegating to grow the business past just the efforts of yourself. And so leadership, and as we stated earlier in many of our videos, the 20-80 rule, only 20% of the population creates jobs for the other 80% of the population. So we call that the Pietro rule. And so it's important to identify in our competitive resources your qualifications to be a member of this 20% population that is empowered, that statistically you fall into that, to start the business, to lead the business, to be a member of our population who creates jobs for the other 80% of our population. So one of the things we want to touch on here in terms of your life story, these little dots that are showing up in the timeline of your life story, in essence, can be competitive resources that you're identifying that give you the qualifications to execute the mission statement to achieve the vision of success statement. Okie dokie. So needless to say, the company history is going to have many points of competitive resources for you to identify and draw from to list in your competitive resources section. But however, when we go and we have a whole video on how to develop an industry analysis, as we go through the industry analysis, it's only dumb logic that you're going to, outline how the product and service is produced. And as you outline the steps and sequences and diagrams on how the products and services identified in your mission statement are produced and delivered to a customer client, needless to say, you have to show that you have the experience or ability to do that. And so here's where we have to go back in the company history and identify where these skills and talents were acquired that qualify you to actually do or acquire or manage or lead the development, the manufacturing, the delivery of the goods and services you outline in your business plan. So the production capabilities required in your industry have to be touched on in the company history, and these, in fact, are competitive resources that want to be listed in our competitive resources section. The same holds true for our market analysis section. There's certain skills it takes to market a business in a market. You can have the best business concept in the world, but if you can't promote it, if you can't acquire customers and clients with a marketing mix, a market development program, you're dead in the water. So one of your competitive or a set of your competitive skills needs to talk about your ability to acquire customers, clients. That's so important. And or in terms of the phase of competitive development, where you're going to acquire those skills. So thus, we might indicate in our competitive resources section that you're involved in Toastmasters, or that you're taking continuing education in marketing and sales, things of this sort. But we have to show in our company history as well as our competitive resources that we have the ability to interface with the marketplace and the world around us to acquire customers. That is very essential. Needless to say, here's the game of Monopoly. And I'm just being a little humorous here, but as we all know, for those of you who've played the game of Monopoly, when you roll the dice and you were able to pass go, you collect $200 for just getting around the table once. And so we can look at our competitive resources also from the standpoint of our ability to pass go and collect $200. I know that sounds kind of funny, but in essence, we need to show that we're qualified to execute the mission statement to achieve the vision of success statement. I now want to talk a little bit about why it's important to know and embrace your competitive resources. First and foremost, and this goes back to how I started this little talk on emotional intelligence and our self-perception, but identifying our competitive resources builds our self-confidence and our ability to project ourselves. So how we perceive ourselves often is directly related to how we project ourselves. So it's important and very, very valuable to really understand what is it that you're most what you're most naturally competitive at in the marketplace based on just God-given skills. So outlining your competitive resources builds your self-confidence. They become bullets in your company brochure and website. So in a brochure or website, or often like in an elevator sales pitch, we have to qualify ourselves. We have to, we have to say what makes us good. We have to be able to project ourselves in terms of our talents or skills in a humble kind of way, in terms of what makes us competitively different in the marketplace. And that brings up the subject matter of the mission statement. What are we selling, to whom we're selling? And our competitive resources are key to perhaps how we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. But our competitive resources will, no doubt, in some way become bullet references in our company brochure or our website. Inventory the skills that you have mastered. So competitive resources, in looking at it as an inventory, but it's a way of, this might sound kind of funny, but putting bullets in a six-shooter, when called upon, if you know what your competitive resources are, and we're in a tough situation as a business or as an individual, we already know the skills that we can draw on. This also allows us to have more self-confidence to go into certain situations, to handle them, and then in areas that we don't have strong competitive resources in, sometimes knowing what's not in our list of competitive resources helps us know what situations to avoid, to stay away from. Next is an awakening to your skill, an awakening to the skills that you may need to execute your strategy. So as we develop our competitive resources and then take a look at our mission statement and our industry analysis and market analysis, it might be quite obvious that there's certain skills that we don't have and that we need to have. And here's where we might want to go into our phases of competitive development and have a phase where we acquire these skills, a personal development phase, a pre-business launch personal development phase is a way that you might be able to address skill sets that you don't have and need to have. Your competitive resources validate your company's qualifications. Just plain and simple, and that's the number one objective of it. And then also your competitive resources summarizes your company history. So by listing these competitive resources, we should get a feel, it should outline the things you achieved during the course of your life, and or the history, but often, especially for startups, the company history is a abstract version of your biography. I want to give an example of a list of competitive resources, and I'm going to be so bold as to outline if I was writing a business plan for the Strategic Path Group, this is the competitive resources I would identify. So the first thing here I have, and this is my practice outside of what I do when I teach. I'm a corporate trainer, and I specialize in the area of team building, developing emotional intelligence-based corporate cultures, as well as I am very active as a certified corporate health and wellness consultant, helping organizations develop health and wellness programs. So first I have up here is the Strategic Path Group has over 25 years of corporate team building, strategic planning, consulting, and executive coaching experience. And then the next paragraph I have here, and we always write these things in the third person. Harry Redinger, managing partner of the Strategic Path Group, is the author of the book, The Strategic Path Business Plan Development for the Emerging Entrepreneur, and the book Strategic Health and Wellness, a Strategic Health and Wellness, a corporate team building approach to corporate health and wellness. In essence, what makes me different here is that when I go in and do my corporate health and wellness consulting, we go through team building, Myers-Briggs type indicator, team building first before we get in the process of developing health and wellness programs, intervention programs, etc. Next, Harry Redinger is a certified master practitioner of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, a certified practitioner of the EQI 2.0 Emotional Intelligence Assessment, and a certified practitioner of the California Psychological Inventory Assessment. So I am very passionate about helping people discover themselves through psychological and behavioral type instruments is another abbreviated way of saying that. The next point of competitive resource I have is Harry Redinger earned his master's degree in business administration from Pepperdine University, and has a Bachelor of Science degree in industrial technology from California State University, Long Beach. Next point is Harry Redinger has over 24 years experience lecturing on the subject matters of entrepreneurship, new venture formation, and business plan development at UCLA Extension. So, no surprise. The next is Harry Redinger is a certified corporate health and wellness specialist. And then finally, Harry Redinger is a 3-time Ironman finisher and has completed over 54 marathons and is an avid practitioner of yoga. Something I don't note there, but I'm also been working, I'm writing, and I'm nearly done at this point, a book called EQ Yoga, which will be integrated into my corporate health and wellness consulting. So anyway, there is an example of outlining competitive resources, and obviously, if I am developing some businesses or practicing in the area of corporate health and wellness, team building, executive coaching, these would be bullet points or statements of competitive resources that would align with the mission and vision of my organizations or of organizations that are in this world of consulting. So as we wrap things up, we want to emphasize that you want to identify competitive resources that you enjoy doing the most, as well as the competitive resources that align with your mission statement to qualify and validate your ability to achieve your vision of success statement. And that concludes our little talk on identifying your competitive resources, and we'll see you at our next video.